Welcome to Anecdotes for Success with Matt and Paul. Storytelling is an art form, emphasizing the value and learning that is created through personal experience. Our purpose is to share these stories and experiences with the listener. Everyone has a powerful testimony. Let's use them to level up to our best life with truth, meaning, trade-offs, and perspective.
Big shout out to Isaac Mather for the new podcast intro. You can check Isaac's music out on all socials or directly at isaacmathermusic.com. All right, I've been waiting for this one for a while. We have my good friend and softball guru. I'm going to use the word guru, Lou Bishop. Lou, welcome. Before I start, how long have you been doing softball for?
Way too long.
That's what you always tell people.
It's the truth. I started coaching my sister when I was 18. I'm 56 now and probably 3 years off in the middle. Like I said, way too long.
And you've coached high school to college to travel at the highest levels, whatever that means. We can get into that later.
There's many levels of highest level.
You've won gold divisions, silver brackets. But most important,
I'm going after the universal plutonium division next.
We'll get into softball division. People that know you and know softball will know exactly what we're talking about with the universal plutonium division. The most important thing is you've done it the Lou Bishop way. And I don't have enough fingers, toes, utensils in the house to count how many athletes you've helped and how many people you've helped find a place. And I think that's important to say, find a place in college softball, because there's only so many SEC schools. There's so many Ivy League schools. But if you really love the game and they play for you, you find a home for them, right?
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, there's all levels of softball and players play at all levels of softball. But me personally, I don't see the sense of going somewhere and not playing after you spent 16 years of your life, 14 years of your life playing organized little league, the travel, the grinding it out 6 games for 7 weekends in a row, to go to a school and play half the year your senior year. Or get there, and then after your freshman year, you realize, oh, Nord, it's not why I'm not playing. It must be the coach's fault, and you leave.
And it's easier than ever to do now.
Oh my Lord. They should start a transfer portal for travel ball. I will have a website up by the time the summer's around with maybe some high school rankings, maybe some all-state player predictions, and there will be a transfer portal for travel ball players on there, because that's the next thing to happen.
You know, it used to be called, when my kids were younger, it used to be called silly season, right? Everybody's jockeying for this team or that team.
It's silly season the whole season.
So you're
it's just called guest playing now.
Yeah, that's a good point. You never know what's on a roster.
We're all guest playing. I can't tell you how many times I laugh when I look at a post that says, my team's off this weekend. We're available to guest play. Well, there must be a reason your team's off this weekend. Maybe you've already played 82 weeks in a row. Maybe you need time for a rest.
Well, you know, we might as well break into that right now, because you've always had the organization, the Tremors. I know you've had out of New York, the name's second to none. you have blue chip softball, the name's second to none. Uh, you're now Impact Gold Tremors, correct?
Correct.
But you've kept a brand that everybody knows very well because it's always been Lou Bishop. I mean, basically, the team should be called the Lou Bishop teams, not the Tremors, because you've created such good brands, everybody knows who's behind them. So that's the stability of that.
Unfortunately,
Well, no, I know you keep joking around like that, but the contacts and the things you do to help players is second to
listen,
none.
I'm giving way too much credit. I'm not the one working on my game. I'm not the one spending the money on my girls. I'm not the one driving all summer. I'm just the one that knows people.
Well, okay, let's go there then.
I mean,
Let's go there. You're the one
I
that
haven't hit a
knows people,
fastball in like 15 years. So, I mean,
but in a super competitive, probably overhyped statistical environment of travel
mm,
softball, you know people, and that's the point. So when people go play for you, we're going to get into your rigorous practice schedule in a minute. But
yeah,
but people know you and you have a reputation, and going back to trying to find a right place for people to play, you're not going to steer coaches wrong, you're not going to steer players wrong regardless of what they think of you at the time. So your reputation, you say you get too much credit, your reputation is why everybody seeks your help and gives you the credit, if that makes sense.
I appreciate it.
Now I mean, I could go back well, uh I remember my kids played for, let's just say, a super authoritarian program where we were punished for sightseeing, uh, practicing before games, practicing after games, practicing 2, 3 times during the week when there's a significant amount of travel involved. And I think sometimes coaches at all levels practice so much because they feel it justifies if the team doesn't succeed almost. Well, it's not my fault as a coach. We just practiced 3 times this week. So they're just not performing. That being said, we went the complete opposite direction with you, and it was the best. Well, my kids did. I was always dragging from behind, kicking and screaming, but it was the best decision our family ever made. Tell us your practice schedule.
Practice.
All right, Allen Iverson. Yeah, practice. We're not talking
Listen,
about the game. We're talking about practice.
yeah, exactly. We're talking about practice. Listen, we have tryouts in August. We'll practice twice before the fall season. Then come the first of the year to the start of high school ball, we'll practice every other Sunday. Then before our spring, before we start in June, we'll hopefully get together once or twice, but that's all depending on how high school goes. Then after our first tournament in June and our last term in July, we practice never. I couldn't count that high, so we don't practice at all.
With that being said, do the girls that
Yeah,
succeed practice?
that's the only way they do succeed.
They
Listen,
practice.
you could practice 3 times a week, 2.5 hours at a time. But there's only so many ground balls each player can field, so many swings each player can take off a tee, live, off a machine. You're limited because of the number of girls there at one time, and you're limited by daylight. You're limited by a lot of things. The only way you get better is by practicing on your own. Practicing only takes you so far. If you're not working on those skills by yourself, practicing 3 days a week, you ain't going to do nothing if you don't do it by yourself.
You know, I can only vouch for the colleges my daughters played for, but even colleges do a lot of small group practices. Like a lot of times the teams aren't all together. Pitchers go pitch, hitters go hit in small groups. You might have middle infield, corners, outfield. They're practicing in small groups for exactly what you said to get more reps in a shorter period of time, right? If you have 10, 15 girls for 2.5, 4 hours, as some travel teams do it now. I know I'm skipping all over the place.
Four.
That's that's not efficient. Do teams do it longer than four?
I don't know. I
You
don't
don't.
know. 4 hours.
And
That's
the
a lot of
purpose,
wrestling to miss.
well, yeah. I want to get into wrestling later, but your practices, I always feel it's more about even building culture and relationships too. So the girls
That's
know,
what practice is.
yep,
Practice is getting to know each other on the team, joking around with each other, learning each other, learning about the game, learning about how to do things as well. But it's mostly about that's why we get together before June starts. I don't know if you knew this or not. Softball in New York in the spring is plagued by bad weather.
oh, I
Okay.
know.
So okay. So when the bad weather hits, how many softball plays are how many games are played during the week in high school sometimes?
Well, sometimes zero, and then it gets into four or
Zero.
five by the end of the year.
My last year coaching Vestal JVs, we played 16 out of 19 days straight because of weather. And you want to throw these girls in on a practice on a Sunday? You want to get together for a 2 hour practice during the week? First of all, they're kids. If they're going to play at college, whether Division One, Two, Three, NAIA, JUCO college, geez, look at Cordy. Perfect example. Eh, I'm not going to say it becomes a job, but at any level, and I will go out on a limb and say, for as much success as Cordy has had the last handful of years under Stacy, it becomes a priority.
Absolutely. It has to.
Okay. So when are they going to be kids? I know a team that has their homecoming dance at tournaments. Think about that. Their high school homecoming dance, they have to have it at the tournament because they aren't allowed to go miss the tournament for that. When are they kids?
Well, they're not. And then when they get the freedom in college, remember we tried to
They're
do a
done.
study? We tried to do a
They're
study.
done. Once they get to college and have it, it don't work out because at the end of the day, they're upset with this or upset with that playing time, the way they're treated by this or that, and they end up not playing. It's some portion of their college career after spending all that time working on it.
Two things. I'm crazy enough to coach high school ball now that my kids are all done with college. And we
God
have
bless
open
you.
we have open gyms and they're on a Google document. And the kids sign up in groups of 5 for 40 minutes and they come hit and leave. And if they're playing other sports, I don't want them there. you know and pitchers, they're all with their, it's off season, they all have their pitching coaches and catchers, and some of them ask if
Oh,
they can stay and pitch. That's fine, but it's on their terms and it's efficient and fun, and we get out of there and they can be kids still.
well, and that's the other reason why practice,
Right.
because you have these days you have your hitting coach, your pitching coach, your agility instructor, your nutritionist, your psychologist,
Don't forget social media
okay, that
consultant.
your social media consultant. So you have all these people that you're paying money to and going once, twice a week to deal with them, get their knowledge, do what they tell you to do. So if I have practice and I tell you to do this different from your hitting coach, first of all, 98.4% of these kids are going to look at you like you're on drugs because I go to Joe for hitting and he says I have to do it this way. The only thing coaches could do is tweak. Listen, this is what Joe says. Okay, yeah, do what Joe says, but try doing this a quarter of an inch different. Try doing this a half a second later. I mean, everyone has their private lessons.
Well, I do those practices to follow your pattern, more or less to get to know the people. And you know what I ask a lot of the hitters that they can't tell me? Like, oh, you've been working with your hitting coach or your travel team? Yeah, I have. I go, that's awesome. Tell me what you're working on. Some know, some don't know. It depends on the age mostly. And then when they explain something, I'm like, oh, why are you doing that? I want to understand. Some of them don't. Like, if you can't
Hey,
answer
coach
that,
told me to.
yeah, if you can't answer that question, you're not developing into the type of softball player that's probably going to succeed the further along you go. And I think that's so important. And there's very few programs, in my opinion, that really try to get the kids to work hard on their own with some guidance and then also understand why they're doing it and then tweak it, right?
Yeah, if you don't understand it, once you get to a different coach, because God knows if there's no success with Joe, we're going to see Phil. Something must be wrong with what Joe's telling me because I'm not hitting 700. Let's go see Phil. Maybe I hear Phil's good.
So let me ask you this. I want your expert opinion on this. It's natural in anything to have a mentor. If it's not sports, we would call it a mentor, right? Doesn't have to be or a life coach or whatever you want to call somebody. But in sports, it's natural to have private lessons, right? At what
Yeah,
point, at what point has that coach taught you everything? Like if you go to a pitching coach or a hitting coach and 2 years later you're still paying them money, shouldn't you move on to another one or do you just indefinitely go to that same coach? Does that make sense what I'm trying to ask?
I guess it depends on the coach.
That's a good point.
I mean, if the coach is praising himself and throwing it all back on you, why am I leaving? He's amazing. Or if he's going to be truthful and say, hey, listen, I can't help you anymore. I don't mind still seeing you, but you need to grow even more farther than I can take you.
Or, or that's perfect. Or they're not going to be as good as they think they are. And I don't think a coach dare says that that's collected money, most of them.
Oh no, no, no. Yeah, no.
It goes
You
both
just haven't
ways.
yeah, it goes you just haven't, you're this close. You're missing it by a half a second. You're off by just a tad. No one's ever going to tell you the truth.
The same thing goes when you decide to play travel ball, specifically softball, because that's what our history is. You start out in 10U, it's all your friends. You get to 12U. Maybe by the time it's 14U, kids are starting to come and go. Some of your friends have stopped playing. Maybe some of your friends got better, worse. At what point should you look for more? Is it realistic to think you start at 10U and you finish with the same team at 18U with all your friends?
Did you say realistic?
Yeah, I
I
did say
I, I really didn't hear. Did you say realistic?
yeah, realistic.
Well, it depends. If you're 102, why leave that team?
I know you're being sarcastic here with the record.
Yeah, well, if you're that good, you're just playing the wrong tournaments.
Right. Well,
Play a better schedule. No one's
I
that good.
does that happen a lot with the younger teams, especially 10U, 12U?
I find so.
They've developed quicker, or they don't travel as far, which is fine at that level and age. And you're focusing on winning. It's time to change things up because you're painting a false picture kind of how
Well,
good you really are. And there's no challenge.
what are these kids' end goal?
Fair enough.
To be 205 or to go to school to play and get help paying their education?
I've thought about this a lot because baseball, it's starting to get a little crazy, but they've always had little league. So for 12U and under, every kid wants to go play little league and go to Williamsport, right?
Uh-huh.
Softball, they have it, but I've talked to our local organization to try to change it to little league softball, and nobody wants that because it interferes with all their 10U and 12U travel ball. And I feel like if we had little league softball in our area, it would at least keep kids from traveling and just working on fundamentals.
That's twofold because I've had kids that
I know you
play
have. That's why I asked it.
In Pennsylvania, and then you have some of these people that dwell too much. Well, it goes back to your philosophy. Little league softball or baseball is all about winning. What's the end goal? To win everything and get to Williamsport. So I guess that they're missing this and that because their commitment that was to the team. Oh, but I'm also committed to my little league team, which we're in the quarterfinals of the this and that. So I mean that's twofold.
Okay, so if you're on a travel team from a certain region, it really just creates more of a headache because now you have kids committed to two teams. But if it was a younger age group and you're all local, the travel team wouldn't be able to perform until Little League was over.
Correct. Yeah.
So I guess it's
I mean
situational, right?
it's back and forth.
I want to talk. We were talking about this the other day, and you run pretty big tournament. Describe the Stop DWI tournament that you run in Binghamton, New York, before I tell my story.
It is uh, about 60 teams, 40 that play in the main bracket, 20-ish that play in the play-in bracket. Um, we only get about 40 different colleges at the event, 40 to 50 different schools, which is equivalent to about 70 to 90 college coaches at the event to watch and recruit the kids.
How many games would you play in a Friday through Sunday if you made it to the championship?
9 to 10.
9 to 10 games in 3 days, technically less than 3 days.
And like we were talking about earlier, 51 hours, you would play 10 games if you don't get the bye on Sunday, I'm sorry.
What I like about the way you operate is you practice what you preach, and you have built relationships with other travel organizations that feel the same way. And the reason I'm saying that, I remember when my daughters were both on your team, they made it to the championship game of the Stop DWI tournament. So it's now 5 o'clock at night, and we're playing the New Jersey Pride, one of your good friends, and they're right. We've probably played each other. You probably still do half a dozen times in a calendar year between fall ball and spring ball, right?
Yep.
And there's two local teams playing in the lower bracket to try to get the bid to come to the higher bracket next year. And you can hear yelling and screaming and arguing going on and win at all costs. And a couple parents walk over and see your team in New Jersey Pride. Just we're taking a group picture and we hug and leave and call ourselves co-champs. And so we don't even play the final game. And
Yep.
to me, that's what softball's all about. They've already played 8 or 9 or 10, whatever you've said. They have a long ride home. There's not a college coach there at that point. And maybe some purists will say that's what's wrong with the game. I personally think moments like that are what's right with why you play and what the whole process is about. What do you think about that?
Oh, Rob had told me before the semifinals, if they won, they were done. That would have been their, I believe, their 10th. The championship would have been their 10th game. You know, I believe, if I'm thinking of the right game, two or three of his kids were going to get a phone call the next Tuesday from colleges to give them an offer. We were going to have to get a call that Tuesday by coaches for the same thing. The trophy meant nothing.
No, and it has nothing.
Like I said, it's to each their own. I mean, I could honestly say the last 4 years of coaching the Tremors in the summer, we probably haven't had a winning record.
Right.
I could honestly say that. If I were a betting man, it would be a little bit below 500.
But
But
you
in
play one of
those
the
four or
toughest
five
schedules
years,
around.
every kid that graduated ended up at a 4 year school playing that next fall.
That's the whole point.
I don't know.
Well,
And
and
when I say playing, I mean taking the field playing, not going on a team that's 98-20 that practices this and that and goes to a school and is sitting for a year and a half. I guess it's to each their own.
right. There's situations. Uh
Yeah.
I know the team my daughters were on that particular year, all 12 of those kids played college softball, and I believe they all finished their education and played.
At the same school for the most part.
Yeah, the transfers or two weren't because of playing time.
Nope.
It was if I remember, it was because this isn't my fit or I'm changing my major or
Right.
not wah I need to leave. It's
Right.
like,
That's
no,
what I meant.
here are my concerns and I'm leaving. Because and listen, it could happen even to the best of kid. They want to try something different. But same with New Jersey, the New Jersey Pride has to be one of the elite programs in that state. And they,
Yep.
it's just fun seeing how that culture plays. And so it has nothing to that like that game in particular had nothing to do with competition. Those girls competed. And even though they hugged and took pictures, they competed hard against each other too. That's not the
Yeah.
point. But the point is they knew who they were. They knew what the purpose was. It had nothing to do with their future. And you could argue at that point it's almost safety. How many games can you play?
Oh, exactly. I
I want to
remember people. I remember one year we got rained out. All the quarterfinals started pouring, rained out, lightning. So there were delays here, delays there, and we're talking Rhode Island Thunder, us, Rhode Island Thunder, us, um, Wagner's from Maryland, and a few other teams. Obviously, a few other teams, and they're all Lou. This we're not going to wait. We can't wait. And I said, well, there was one team. I go, you have to help me convince him because he's going to want to stay and play till tomorrow. And one of them said, Lou, you start, I'll finish it. So we ended up going home, but there was one or two angry people because they couldn't win the event. and I get wanting to win it. It's
100%.
it's a prestigious, from what people say, it's a prestigious tournament, and you want to be the winner of the tournament of champions. But at the end of the day, how many trophies can you have on your mantle?
Well, I think it's more about playing at the highest level you can compete at with no guarantees. And if you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. If you know you have to work harder, you try to figure things out, analyze, tweak on your own, and make adjustments. And I don't think even some programs with the best records have kids that actually can do that. And it shows eventually when they get to a certain
Hmm.
level, right?
Good point.
Uh,
Yes.
and like I said, that's why I'm trying to be different as a high school coach. I have no skin in the game. It's a program with a rich history. And it's amazing when I ask kids, well, why are you doing that? And some can answer, some can't. And it blows my mind. Like, well, what's the point of swinging? What's the point? I hope my pilot knows why the plane works the way it does, and I hope
Yeah.
my surgeon knows why they have to cut this instead of this or what and I have a dream for kids softball or baseball at a young level. I'd love to see 7 to 10 year olds playing in a league or 12-year-olds where there's no coaches or umps in the field and you only have 6 to 7 kids on the team and you have to figure it out. Now there's chaperones around the outside of the field. But isn't that what kids did 20 years ago, 30 years
Can we
ago?
get rid of parents?
Well, yeah, well, they can do whatever they want. They just can't come inside the fence. I mean, it'd probably be better if they weren't there at all, right?
Oh, amen.
I think it's
That's like
interesting.
my daughter's 6, and people go to me, "Oh, I bet you she's gonna play softball." I look at them straight in the eye, I go, "No way in hell."
Wait,
And
she's
they
not
look at me
verbal?
like I'm crazy.
She's not
Huh?
verbal yet?
She verbal she was the first verbal of the class of 30-34. But I tell them, I go, with the way parents are now, by the time she's ready, really ready to play, it's gonna be so out of control. It's just amazing. I'm gonna become a dance dad
Well,
and
be
make them
careful.
bows.
Be careful because you remember that show Dance?
We had dance tonight. I have to buy a ballerina outfit.
Yeah, but remember the show Dance Moms? I think we could have a pilot for a show Softball Dads.
And well, there's no doubt we could have a softball dad show. But I watch Dance Moms religiously, and I'm gonna start Dance Dads.
I'll watch it. I'll watch it. Do you think it's probably always been this way? I mean, having daughters and I mean, I always tell listeners I was a golfer, played on some mini tours. I even built a green in my backyard, 18 tons of dirt and sand. My kids were supposed to be golfers, but they caught the softball bug and the basketball bug. Next thing you know, there I go, quitting coaching college golf, wanting to be around them. You're involved with them. I'm an educator, so naturally I'm around to help coach at early ages. And somewhere along the line, I pride myself that I think I actually became a softball coach and not just a dad. But emotionally,
Well, your kids aren't playing now, so yes, you are.
well, so now, yeah, 100%. And I feel there's nothing worse. There's nothing better than watching your kid do well in something they put their time and energy into. Boy, and there's nothing that puts a hole in your heart worse than watching them fail and be sad about it. But I think it's super important to let them learn how to deal with that, right? And being 102,
Yes.
they don't learn how to deal with that. Uh, Being on your program and maybe not being 500, but realizing they're still a good softball player and it's not their entire identity is going to make them a more well-rounded person at the next level and after college.
Oh, so true.
Is it hard? I mean, I'm out of the travel game 100%, even though said party still tries to suck me into that. Uh,
Huh?
uh, is it worse or is it just the same? I mean,
Oh, it's worse.
is it because
It's
of social?
beyond worse.
Why is it, you think?
Oh, because of social media. Social media expectations. Um, you said earlier, you know, eh, it's the Impact Gold Tremors now. The only reason it's the Impact Gold Tremors, and I would never. That's the only reason I did it. If it could be still be Tremors part of the name. The only reason it just gives us a broader base to help the kids that are in the Tremors program. It opens up avenues for different schools.
Right.
You got
Well, you've been the master of connections. So now if I always thought you knew everybody, now if you know everybody plus, I don't know.
and you look at some of these teams. Yeah, you're this program or that program, but you're still X, Y, and Z. Yeah, Bat Busters, Lady Dukes, uh, all of them. The not to pick on any one, but I mean, they're still the same team they were. I'm not pretending to be a different team. We're still the Impact. We're still the Tremors. We're just part of Impact Gold program now.
Right. Well, it's valuable. I mean, you're playing, you play at a national level and you have kids from what? It's safe to say 4 to 6 hours away sometimes that play for you.
Mhm.
I mean, so do some bigger organizations. And you don't have you don't have the population density in the area. So what I like about you is,
Plus, you have 700 travel teams in the area too now, because everyone has the next best thing.
well, let's shift gears to that. And then if we come back to what we were just talking about, that's fine. I had a college, I'm trying to do more as a high school coach to act like a travel coach, if that makes sense. Like a lot of kids think, oh, high school ball, whatever, it's my travel coach that's going to get me recruited. And I feel with my experience and people I know and coaches I know and knowing you, I can help that every bit as much as
Mhm.
any travel coach in our area besides you. Like I'll put that on the record because I'd always call you. But I had representation at this panel from D1, D2, D3, and JUCO. And ironically, some people didn't come to the panel because it was their first fall/winter workout for their travel team and they couldn't miss the practice. Are we missing the point? They can't miss practice to talk about college coaches, but a lot of the kids, well, I say a lot, probably at 10, 12, a lot of kids think they want to play college. They don't know any better. It seems Cinderella like, right? And you had a chance to actually be in front of coaches and then go to breakout sessions with them all. But we couldn't do that because we had practice. Practice. We're talking about practice.
Talk about practice.
And couldn't that have been
Listen,
the practice?
I I have people worried about missing one of our Sunday practices to go to something school related. School always comes first, anyways. I mean, to have the opportunity to listen to those people that you had on the panel, or go to a 2 hour workout. And what time of year was this? I
It
forget.
was November-ish. I'd have to look at the exact date.
November, the end of the fall season, even if we're talking softball, the end of the fall season before basketball season, to give up 2 hours of working out with a team instead of or sitting in front of four college coaches, five college coaches, um, to listen to what to do to help yourself get better, help yourself get recruited. Yeah, I I would have pushed people to go to the the discussion group.
Well, I'm hoping it'll grow. I'm not going anywhere. but even searching for careers instead of just picking a college for a major, why don't you go shadow somebody in that career before you invest in it, right? And
Yeah.
maybe by going to that panel, kids might start saying, depending what age they are, wow, I didn't know that, or wow, I want to do more of that, or wow, I didn't know if you hit 750 in high school ball, it still doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get recruited to the college of your dreams, right? Or one of the interesting
Or
facts,
or or wow, playing at this level's a lot of work. Or playing at this level takes up way too much time, and I want to be a nurse. I'm
yeah,
not going to be able to do that. I better look at this level where both are manageable instead
yeah,
of figuring it out after 2 years there. I can't do this my junior and senior year. I'm going to have to leave.
that happens.
It does
Happens a lot.
more often than people realize.
Yeah. Uh, and now you're not now, we all retire from what we do, sports careers. I mean, athletes retire, whether it's after high school or JUCO or a 4-year career or whatever. But when you don't look at those things ahead of time, you're not leaving on your own terms. And I think that's equally as important to what level you play on, what your stats are, what you're doing. You want to finish because you're ready to be finished, not because you didn't think ahead and realize I have to choose between my career and a sport. Like that doesn't even make sense.
No,
Some
it doesn't.
choose career and then their eligibility is up in college and they're going back to school,
Yeah.
you know? So it's I guess it's difficult when you're dealing with parents. It might be the first time they're going through with their child, or you only have one child and no one wants to get it wrong. But it blows my mind the people that don't listen to others that have been through it, and maybe just to listen to it, maybe not even just to soak it in, because of course everybody's had different experiences, right? I'm a teacher, so the kid that didn't like my class and had a barely graduated high school is going to say, oh, you don't need high school, it doesn't work for me, and they think they're an expert in education because they've been in school. So just because someone's been through a sport, basketball, baseball, softball, doesn't mean they're an expert to it. But don't you think you should listen to them, maybe evaluate it and soak it in?
You would think they would listen to someone that's been there, done it, at least to find out maybe what someone else went through. What does it take? Probably as much time as it takes to take one hitting lesson, and they don't have to pay for it.
That's so true. That's so true. I heard a stat one of the years we were out in Denver, because you always sent me to the coaches' meetings because you didn't want to go. Uh,
Uh, it was to prepare you for future years.
yes, well, I remember this stat, you know, 80%. It's an 80-20 rule. I mean, it's not 100% accurate, but for the most part, 80% of any college softball team's roster at any level comes from within 8 hours of the school. And you start looking, well, at Alabama, the pitcher's from California and the catcher's from Texas. Okay, where's the rest of the roster from? Right.
Yep.
And in 8 hours could be several states away. But everybody, sometimes you're limited to where you may go to school just because of where you live. There's just so many people that play.
Yeah.
And it's just another conversation. It doesn't mean you can't go to a camp there. It doesn't mean you hit the ball 500 feet every time you're up and they don't want you. But I think that the less people have of those types of conversations, the more they start pumping into like things that aren't going to work for them. And it just leads in disappointment or burnout. My dreams didn't come true. My travel coach doesn't know what they're talking about. I don't know
Mhm.
why they don't want me. I don't know. How do you fix that?
Uh, it's hard. It's hard because of everything that's happened in the past. It's hard when you have these coaches selling dreams instead of reality.
I know there's a lot of, you know, a lot of people, and there's a lot of programs that are in it for the right reasons, right? We don't have to go through and list all the names, but I feel like, again, I know players over a decade difference in age because of when my kids got in and when my kids got out. So you just know tail ends of that. And I feel like they're all pretty successful in life because they learn to deal with all this stuff, the adversity and working on their own, losing to some extent at the highest level. And you've had teams that have stole the show at the highest level sometimes. I remember teams that have their own private charter buses coming to town, and we're us, and you steal the show for the day, right? And it can happen.
Oh, there's no doubt it can happen. You know,
But that's the
it's
fun of
just
it.
right place, right time for everything.
Yeah, and that's the fun of it. That if you get the right group of girls where all of them are working hard when they're not together, and that's sometimes the hard part, right? All of them don't want to play other places, and they all become good friends because they gelled well in the fall and the winter time. Boy, that can be very special too. But that's not easy to accomplish. And it's not going to be easy to accomplish if you practice 3 days a week either.
No, and that's not easy to accomplish in college.
Now, special well,
Because in
especially with
college, there's what, 18 on a team?
sometimes 23 or so.
Okay, so you're not playing on a team that only has 12 or 11. So we could be 102 and play with our friends the whole time. Because I don't think half these teams that have all these that stay together throughout from 8 years old all the way up to 18 and then go to college, they all go to the same college. I don't think I don't think Binghamton University is going to recruit all 11 kids from one team just because they were 102 and played together all the way through travel ball.
No, and
And I don't mean Binghamton University just came to my mind as a
any
school.
university.
Yeah,
just just because we're
Bishop
you're
University.
yeah, your team's based out of Binghamton. I mean, they're all not going, you know. When I was watching my girls play, it was funny no matter where you are. We were down at Georgia Southern one year with Allie, and after the game, there were because it was like travel softball days, so there were three travel teams in the stands watching, and probably every little girl thought someday they're playing for that team. And afterwards, there's autograph. It was really cute how they
Yeah,
empowered
yeah,
the
yeah.
kids, but at some point, teams are going to break apart, and people are going to go different ways and challenge themselves different ways, and whether it is the team that practices or the team that does it your way, you have to be honest with your right fit too, right?
Yeah, that's how it is what makes you happy, what makes you want to play more, what makes you get your end goal.
But I
Listen,
feel so
I've known people that have gone to schools that don't have their major. Now, why in the hell would you go to verbal to a school to go play softball at if they don't have your major?
I think you're missing the point, right?
You're not, and I could be totally wrong on this. Not too many people are playing softball after 4 years of college.
No. And I my favorite are when kids have turned down academic money for less scholarship money, but they get
Oh,
a
yeah.
scholarship because technically the academic money is just based on academic merit. And but you'd technically be a walk-on, I guess, if you didn't have the scholarship money, right? Even though some schools give so much academic money, it could pay for half your tuition.
So let's think of it this way. And this just popped into my head. You know, Tom Brady, the GOAT, right?
Right.
He may be the GOAT, but not for the reason people think he's a GOAT. How many times did he restructure his contract? Many times. He still ended up with the same money at the end of the day, but he restructured his contract to keep the team better,
Right.
right? So he took less money playing at that point to keep the team going to all these Super Bowls, right? So if a college coach came to you and said, listen, we can only give you this much money and this much academic money, but at the end of the day, it's everything. People have turned that down. I know a school that does that or that did that. You only had X amount of full ride, X amount of scholarship, but he recruited the kids that had the grades, had the academics, that he could split up all the scholarship he had, give them as much of the academic they had, so everyone had a full ride.
Great.
So Tom Brady could be the smartest football player in the world just because of what he did, the way he won his
Right.
rings.
Right. But he didn't care. I
So
mean, he got his money.
what difference does it make how you get your money if
Well,
you get your education?
well, I think again, what's nice about what you do, and
Like I
and
said,
you're
I could be on the wrong page of all of this, but
no, you're not. And again, I know the circle of people you hang with in the softball community and yourself. Uh, the proof's in the pudding. I mean, not only do most of the kids in your program, I mean, obviously we can't say everyone finish school. A lot of them start giving back to the game, don't they?
yeah.
I mean, I just saw one when I came up to your practice the other Sunday, saw a couple. And my one daughter's a high school softball coach. My other one's a financial analyst, but she's giving lessons and helping out a local travel team in her spare time. They've learned to love the game because it didn't interfere with proms and dances and vacations. They suffered adversity, played at the highest levels,
And you know
and
what? And
figured it out.
there's nothing wrong with giving all that up.
No.
If that's what you want,
And some people do or don't. Yeah.
hey, I've just never seen the reason of it.
I think the important thing, I know when we had talks in our family growing up, if it becomes an issue, then you have to pivot and find what's right for you. Don't just keep pushing through it because eventually you're going to hit the wall and people call it burnout. I just call it there's other things you'd rather do at some point, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But you,
You know,
if someone's not sure about the game, I feel you prolong it. And what I mean is, all right, you're not going to practices and there's not that commitment, but eventually they won't succeed if they're not putting the time in on their own because it doesn't mean anything to them. But
well,
you give the kids
it
the
all comes back
opportunity.
to that.
Yeah, you
It
give
all
them the
comes back to
opportunity.
how much time you put into it.
Yep.
That's the only
Without
way
being
you get
forced.
better.
Without being forced.
Yeah. Because even
And
if you're being forced, you aren't doing it.
yeah, I remember
Susie, let's go hit. We have to go to the cage and hit our hour today. Does Susie want to be there? How good are those swings going to be if Susie doesn't want to be there?
what type of feedback Susie getting too. Does she understand why she's swinging or what she's working on? Are they arguing the whole time? Who knows, right?
Yeah.
My favorite, we'd go to you go to some of the highly competitive national tournaments, and if it's not an elimination round, if you have 12 kids on the team and number 11 makes the last out of the game, number 12's lead off on the next game.
Yep.
And it cracks me up because the other team will be saying, look out for the bunt, look out for the slap because it's a lefty and they're not even a slapper, but because it's the first hitter, they just assume they slap and they're
They just
fast.
roll over the lineup.
And if the team's hitting, then everybody's getting a ton of at bats. If we're not, it's everybody's fault. But no one can say why did I get two at bats when Susie, again to pick on Susie, got 10 for the
And
weekend.
what's in my eyes the best type of batting practice is live pitching. So if you're playing 4 games of round robin, everyone's going to get the same amount of practice of opportunities against the live pitching to improve their game.
And they're competing for one of those 9 or 10 spots on a Sunday.
Yep.
And it's fair, right?
In
You all,
essence, yes.
I mean, not that, there's exceptions, of course, and whatnot. Uh, I don't know. I've just always admired how you do things the right way, and too long's not long enough for Lou Bishop to be part of softball.
Oh,
So
yes, too long.
no, no, I someday when you're in the New York State Softball Hall of Fame, uh,
Where's that going to be?
I don't know. I'm not falling for that right now. uh, that's a whole nother episode. But no, I wanted to take a little spin off for the day and just talk that. I know there's a lot of people that get a lot out of this. If you had a daughter that was gonna play softball and
Yes.
not let's just say you're gonna, and she's not verbal yet and she doesn't dance and she's 8 years old. Tell me, knowing what you know, what they should do when they're 8, 10, 12, when they should start traveling in Lou Bishop's eyes. And I know there's exceptions, but what should the general outline be? If for some reason, well, let's just start with an 8-year-old thinks they love softball. And then at what point does the conversation turn into, well, if you want to go to college, we got to do this? And how's that play out if you can possibly answer that?
Oh, Lord. First, I would think if they like it and want to play, you're going to be playing your local little league, local Cinderella,
Yep.
and just take it from there on the situation at any given year. Um, I mean, if at 12 years old they have a further burning to play more and they hear about this and that and want to try it, leave it up to them to do it. Don't push them. Oh well, I think she's going to be the next All American. We got to get there now. Leave it up. Leave it in their hands. If they want to do it, they're going to let you know they want to do it,
Yeah.
and you just have to take their cue on it.
I remember when my kids went from 12 to 14U and they went to another team in Binghamton before we played for you, I was mad at my whole family because we love the game so much. We want to go play on this more regional team. And I'm like, well, what about my friends? And what about your friends? And what about our local team? And here I have a 12 and an 11-year-old telling me, well, we want to get better. So we want to play with people from a larger area. And isn't it crazy? They let it. I didn't lead it as a father. They let it.
Yeah, no, I mean they have to want to do it. If they don't want to do it, why even put them through that?
And it's okay. I just feel like if I had to do over again, I'm so glad we always had those conversations. And I had to be ready. What if this is the year they say they don't want to do it anymore? That's okay.
It's going to hurt the parents more than the kids.
I think it does. And because that's a whole nother episode. There's a whole lifestyle that goes with the travel and the parents and the fun. And you build a lot of nice relationships even from the adult side of things. So
Yes.
uh if you can find a culture like yours that does that, I'm not saying I won't ever help you again. Maybe I'll guest coach. I don't want to have too much on record, but
Oh, I videoed it. It's all on
yeah,
record.
I'm glad you took the time to talk to me. And
Well,
uh,
thanks for having me.
yeah, absolutely. And maybe next time we'll bring some of the other said guests we talked about, and we could have, some of your coaching friends from New Jersey and some of your friends from New York State and see what happens here. Maybe tell some more stories.
Oh, and they would be stories. We could have a whole another podcast about travel ball that would just be amazing.
Well, if it's done right, you build relationships, but more importantly, you have a coach that can help you bridge to other relationships, no matter what they are. And I think too many miss the point on that, and you don't. So thank you, Lou Bishop.
Thank you for all the times you carted your two kids around and to put up with me.
I miss it. I don't want to say that, but I miss it. All right, man. Until next time, I'll talk to you.
Hey, take care, Paul. Thanks.
All right, bye.